Hey guys, what's up? It's Jordan Peterson time. I'm going to watch a video that is one of the that actually shows you the beginning of Jordan Peterson, how he became so weirdly famous and with what reason. And it kind of makes sense what's going to happen. The video is not in the best quality, but it's the best compilation of quality thing that I could find. So let's go.
University of Toronto psychology professor Jordan Peterson has a fight on his hands after objecting to proposed legislation that he says would violate his freedom of speech by forcing him to address transgendered people using the pronouns of their choosing. Joining us now to better understand the issue and debate what's at stake. In Vancouver, British Columbia, Theron Meyer, transgender pundit and YouTuber. In the nation's capital, Kyle Kirkup, professor of law at the University of Ottawa. And here in studio, the aforementioned Jordan Peterson, professor of psychology, University of
so
Toronto.
young.
Nicholas Matt, lecturer, transgender studies at U of T. And Mary Rogan, whose article entitled Growing Up Trans is featured in the October issue of the Walrus magazine. We appreciate everybody being on the program for what is, I think, one of the hottest topics in the country today, Professor Peterson, and it's all because of you. And I think before we go any further with our conversation here, I want to give people a sense of how hot this has got, starting on the downtown campus of the University of Toronto. Sheldon, if you would.
Yeah, this is where it started.
Okay. Well, as you can see, the opponents of free speech are capable of making a lot of inarticulate noise.
Free speech is the mechanism by which we keep our society functioning. Woo!
And by doing this, you're imposing, whoa, 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 wait, no, not cool.
I'm going to post this online that you would like people to be more accommodating of trans people and people of color at your events in future.
I would
I'm
like
a person
there to
of
be
color.
no
Listen,
violence.
I'm a person of color, and I felt very accommodating.
There have been multiple recorded instances of trans people killing themselves because they are.
The thing is about this whole freaking situation is, look at that guy on the left side. He feels comfortable saying that I'm a guy person of color, but if he reacts in any weird aggressive way, they will relate him to super right-wing, aggressive people, misogyny, patriarchy, and then immediately they would say, Jordan Peterson, you're just like them. Which doesn't make actually any sense, because if you just want to pick anybody out and says, I'm just going to relate it with the most negative, exaggerated, super right-leaning or left-leaning group, you're always going to be right. It's like this whole agenda, it's weird. I was so happy that this guy tried to make a point in a chill way, as chill as he could be, but he's young, he's going to be active, not Jordan, and the people on the transgender side were more actively aggressive for some odd reason, and it was like, okay, as long as they're more aggressive, how you respond, but you don't scream, because you can never have a screaming match, because you will always lose, but you have to be calm if they go up, because the moment you react in a way from the past, immediately they have a reason to label you, because that is what they do. They're a victim forever by anything they see. It's freaking dangerous. And I see Jordan Peterson, as I said, he looked very young. This stress, the fact that he keeps debating 24/7, I think it actually broke his brain for a while. Because why would you bother make sense to somebody that tells you 2 plus 2 is 5? You break almost your freaking brain because you try to make it logical why 2 plus 2 is 5. And by trying to understand somebody, by being empathetic, because he's the one empathetic enough to try to do it logically, they're like, oh, you actually kind of make sense of my stupid argument. That means I'm right. So now you have to do the things that I tell you. And it was like, that's why I stopped. Because I realized that my MS maybe even started because of that. It's all about stress, all about the brain can't handle stuff. And then one moment your brain just pops. And when Jordan had to go to Russia or something weird like that to get some medical stuff, people were laughing on Twitter. It bothers me when anybody makes jokes about somebody else as if he is killing somebody, so now I think you're going to die. Ha ha, take that, you bigot. I know, man. Imagine if I just said, take that, you transgender person. Hope you take your life. That doesn't make any sense.
They are not being integrated into society.
If it wasn't for this law, and I asked you to refer to me with they, them pronouns, would you?
Why do you have the authority to determine whether or not an individual is worthy of you using their pronouns?
Why would you believe you have the authority to tell me what I can say or not? Imagine if I tell you I have the authority that if you come to my home, you have to pray every time. If I just take care of your kid for a babysitting, I have to pray with him 24/7 because we believe in Jesus Christ. Would you accept that? No. Then why should I accept something that you consider normal? Why would you make me responsible for your self-esteem? I don't understand it. And for other people that have a life or whatever, for me it even bothers me more because I don't have a mom. I had to do everything by myself. Whenever I wanted to blame somebody, everybody said, hey, that is not my life. You didn't draw the right cards. You're just an unlucky draw. If you can bluff your way out, that's your problem. And the fact that you come tell me, well, you never tried to, everybody tries to commit suicide. The only thing is, the way they keep pushing it and put all the responsibility on one generation, I am like, dude, everybody can hurt your freaking feelings. You're gonna cry every time? You can't make a goalpost that is humongous and be like, okay, I threw a golf ball, it can land everywhere. Hard to block by the goalkeeper. It's really hard. My life is like freaking Bitcoin. Hopefully, I hope I end up higher. Because if it doesn't go down, I don't appreciate when I go up. But you're always focused on down. Okay, I had to joke because I had to set it up. But you understand, right? The way I made a stupid joke about down, which could lead to fick on the arm, you know? That's how I joked. I joked about my mom. I joke about I have one eye. I joke I was skinny. I joke I had a woman's vibe on the phone. My voice was super. Everybody called me an F word. I just thought, you know what? There is tomorrow. And I did that for a very long time. I think until you're in your 30s, 40s, then you're going to realize, damn, I was kind of stupid. But no, we have to make a conclusion when you're 16, 20 or something like that. When you make some of the most dumbest decision, like a tattoo or something like that. And now I am responsible because you felt insecure and you did something that is permanent? Come on, man. I don't want to do that.
Like if I asked you, would you please use they, them pronouns for me? What?
It would depend on what I
What
thought of your
hoops do you want us
motivation.
to jump through?
Those are my pronouns.
I don't care if it's your pronouns. There's only one friend I do that for. Because she asked me. And because I liked her. And we like to talk with each other. And because it makes her feel more comfortable. She didn't come with a Z, Zer, Zar, Z, transformer or something like that. She just said, hey, do you mind say they? I said, okay. If it makes you feel comfortable, I don't mind. But that's it. But I'm not gonna go to a person or a stranger and be like, you have to do it. Do you think I'm going to go to you like, hey, this church is a Christian church or whatever, or a Muslim church? Yeah, we have to go pray now. Well, I don't want. Well, but you get my point. I don't want to force you do something that you don't understand. And if you say that it's just that easy, yes, I can say that too. Praying. Close your eyes. Think about the game you want to play. Easy. You can just fake it. Just say at the hand, hallelujah, amen, right? But no, you don't feel comfortable.
Okay, with indulgence of everybody else on the program, I'm going to start with Professor Peterson off the top here for a while because, as I suggested, you thought long and hard about this. You posted a few things up to YouTube asking us to lay the case out. What is it you find offensive about this legislation?
Well, fundamentally, there were two things that really bothered me, although there have been other things I've thought about since. One was that I was being asked, as everyone is, to use a certain set of words that I think are the constructions of people who have a political ideology that I don't believe in and that I also regard as dangerous.
What are those words?
Those are the made-up words that people now describe as gender neutral. And so, to me, they're an attempt to control language and in a direction that isn't happening organically. It's not happening naturally. People aren't picking up these words in the typical way that new words are picked up, but by force and by fiat. And I would say by force because there's legislative power behind them. So and I don't like these made-up words.
You know what I find weird? I like to say, I don't know if you have watched my previous videos, but I like to say the word Gucci. Like, yeah, I just did that. I don't know what happened, but you know what? Life is Gucci. I just went forward. It's something that I like to say. And almost all Discord, when they hear that words, they find it funny. You have a funny way of talking, and they start using that word. That's how it's supposed to be. You can invent words right now, and I have to say them? I mean, if it's between your friend, hey, cool. I find that cool, you know, when you meet a friend and you have a different kind of pose when you greet each other, you know? Everybody has that. But I'm not going to a train to, hey, you have to do this, transformer with your hand. You know, it's a personal thing.
The and zer and that sort of thing.
Okay, what about, they're not all made up, quote unquote, made up words. For
No,
example,
okay.
they is one of them.
Yeah,
to,
but
to
we
speak to an individual
yes,
as they.
Right, but we can't dispense with the distinction between singular and plural. I mean, I know that the advocates of that particular approach say that they has been used forever as a singular, and that's actually not correct. It's used as a singular in very exceptional circumstances, like if your child wishes to bring a book to school, they're welcome to do so. But
that's just grammatically incorrect.
Well, it is also. There's some debate about that because they is used like that sometimes, but it's never been used as a singular replacement for he or she.
Yeah, that was...
So it's not a tenable solution, and that's the best of the solutions.
So we understand your views and where you're coming from. Let's do one more question here, and then we'll get everybody else into the conversation. You know, of course, that since this story broke, you've been called a lot of things.
Yeah.
One of which is a transphobe.
Yeah.
Some people have accused you of using the free speech issue to mask what's really going on here, which is an attempt to deprive other people of what they believe are their legitimate rights. Well, and I want to give you the opportunity to speak to whether or not you are a transphobe.
Well, I can tell you that I've received more letters from transsexual people supporting me than opposing me. And I never said anything really about transsexual people, about their existence, although that was the first thing that I was accused of doing. I didn't say that transsexual people didn't exist. I said that gender identity, gender expression, and biological sex do not vary independently, which they don't. And so this issue is in some sense only peripherally about transsexual issues. It's more centrally about gender issues. And then on top of that, and I think it's the biggest issue, is that it's a free speech issue.
Okay, let us continue to explore all of those issues that you have just raised. And why don't we do this? Let's take a moment. New York City, for example, recognizes 31 such gender expressions. In other words, besides man and woman, there are 29 other gender expressions.
And by the way, remember, this isn't now. This is like years ago, something like 5 years. I'm not sure, but it's a lot. And there were so many already that they recognize. I believe there's a place that is like almost 100.
But that doesn't mean that there aren't other people who identify differently.
There are 100 different genders on this BBC list, apparently, right? One of them is two-spirit person, polygender, pangender, neutroids, the public broadcaster paid for by us with the license fee is now instructing children there are 100 genders they can identify as. You have come to defend it, and you don't know what half of these are.
But hang on, Piers, ignorance isn't a defense.
Why would you have so many? Yeah, because every kid can think a little different, and I get where they're going. They're like, if you have more feminine features, but then a little more masculine here, I'm like, okay, you can just define it whatever you want, but why do you have to place it in a category? It's just confusing. You're killing simple stuff. If I want to understand somebody, I don't want to make it more difficult to understand. I want to make it more simple. Well, I don't feel included. Well, if simple doesn't make you feel included, then I think you have an issue. But that's me. But I think the more you think about stuff, you don't understand it. But the older you get, you're going to realize how simple life can be and how much you miss because you were overthinking it.
For example, pangender, queer gender, gender fluid, cross-dresser, bigendered, gender blender, and the list goes on.
Gender blender. Okay, man. Okay. I guess then my sons are gender color because they're like almost white, but they turn brown when they go into the sun. I don't know.
Nicholas, this is where I want to bring you into the discussion because you teach this. You teach trans studies. So if you would, give us a brief primer on so many gender identities that in your view require non-traditional pronouns.
Basically,
it's not correct that there is such a thing as biological sex. And I'm a historian of medicine. I can unpack that for you at great length if you want, but in the interest of time, I won't.
Okay, for the interest of time, I will unpack it for you. If you can have a baby, you're a woman. If you can shoot the liquid that helps make a baby, you're a man. Even if you cut them, even if it doesn't work, whatever you decide how you feel, you're a man or a woman. You can identify whatever you want, okay?
So that's a very popular misconception. So essentially when in my transgender studies classes, what we're doing is looking at actual research and identifying ways
actual research.
that current social issues related to trans people or things that are associated with trans, such as free speech arguments and claims, how that connects to the way that people are thinking, the way that research has been framed, the histories.
Give us some of the other pronouns that one would hear, typically.
I don't focus on pronouns because pronouns are actually part of a cisnormative culture. So what we do is learn about...
I'm going to stop you right there.
Yes, I was just about to explain.
Good.
So we don't...
Let's talk about the A, B, C, D. Oh, no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. And I'm like, okay, man. The more difficult you make it to come at the same conclusion, a happy life, it doesn't make any sense. You have people trying all these things, but the more you overthink, you're gonna get confused, especially when somebody doesn't even want to bother with it. But now you made it a law that I have to do it. And certain people were like, well, it's not that hard. Just say it. I'm like, okay, 2 + 2 is 5. Just say it, right? We have to do it. What happened then? Nobody thought it was going to happen. We have all these parents, all these teachers teaching all this stuff at school behind your back. Imagine you don't even know what the heck is happening. Suddenly you get a call. Hey, can you come to the school, parents? Because we have to talk. You go to the school, you have a table, you have to sit here. And your daughter sits here or your boy sits here next to the teacher while he is hugging your child. He's crying and it's like, okay, I think your son is identifying as this and you have to say this word. You have to say it, because if you don't say it, you're being discriminatory, you're not inclusive, and you're a transphobe. You as a parent can start crying. What the heck is happening? I don't understand. Well, the fact that you don't understand proves that we are right. They gaslight you, blindside you, victim blame you, and then put you in a position that if you don't want to say it, you will go in front of a judge. And the judge is going to say, well, if you don't want to be part of this and your child keeps crying, we are putting a fine on you. And if you don't pay the fine, you will go to prison. But everybody's like, no, you won't go to prison. It's just the law. If you didn't break the law, we all made a rule. And I'm like, you can't make a rule. And if I break it, say, well, I didn't send you to prison. It was the cop. That is so stupid. That's why I start feeling, you know what? All the dead people on the ground, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking shit. Because they said there's a slippery slope, and it was like, old man, you have no idea what you're talking about.
We don't start from a cisnormative perspective because that can't actually go very far.
What does cisnormative mean?
So I'm going to start us there. Cisnormative is basically the very popular idea and assumption that most people probably have, and definitely that our structures convey, that there is such a thing as male and female, that they connect to being a girl or a boy or a man or a woman. And then sometimes that will also recognize intersex or trans people or transsexual people, as you mentioned, because that's sometimes also referred to as a gender binary. So anything that fits within a gender binary can work within cisnormativity. But cisnormativity is basically that everyone assumes that there is male and female, and so very little is actually looked at to understand what's actually the case. And scientists have been doing this for at least over 50 years.
Your view would be it's much more complicated than that.
Right. It's not my view. I just know that for over 50 years, scientists have shown that that's not true. And yet our social systems haven't been able to find a way to address the level of complexity that people actually experience.
Yeah, okay, the complexity or whatever. Look, man, if you go to my Caribbean island and you see all my aunties that have all a little butch body, big titties or whatever, right? Like I see most transgender girls have when they're young. If that is true, almost all my aunties are trans men or non-binary. But they don't care about how their body looks like the feminine side. They know they're a woman. They act like a woman, big, strong, skinny, whatever. They don't even freaking care. The fact that when I was little, I was skinny, black, with a voice like a woman, right? I still thought I was a man. I bet if I was born right now, everyone's, well, you might feel more comfortable with this because actually you have these futures. You have these futures. I think actually you might be an intersex or a gender blender or whatever. And I might be like, hey man, that's kind of inclusive. So finally I feel love because a group that will accept me whatever I do. A kid that lost his mom at 6 years old and nobody kind of really is there to push him in the right direction. Everybody says grow up. The world doesn't care about your feelings. If I was born at that time like now, I would have been a totally different person. Because somebody teased you. You got angry and you made a law that puts all of us in the same group. Why? Why do you put all of us in the same group? Just call the police on those bad people, and there's always going to be somebody that teases you. It's not gonna stop, but if you want to clear the world from all the negativity, cool, do that. Then also when a guy dresses like a girl, goes to the girl's bathroom, finds a girl, grapes her, not in number 2, no wait, not in number 1, number 2, yeah, that the poo-poo, number 2, for the first time, pram, pram, pram. Daughter comes home, where, Papa, what the heck is happening? Father goes complain to the school. What happens? Whoop, whoop. Call the cops. Bram, 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 bram. He is also a right-wing people. You want to know? Hey, where's the little girl dressing person? Well, we don't have that. Nothing really happened. It's all a lie. They send the girl identifying girl to a school, a different school, because they want to be hush-hush about that whole thing. What happened? She did it again to another person there. Because it would not surprise me, certain people will start taking action. And if that happens, you're going to be like, hey, I'm right. I guess I have to force you to use those words. I'm like, nah, man. Nah, man. It's like a lose situation till somebody says, I'm done.
And that means, and people are always looking for new tools to operate in the world. And if you invent a good tool, like a new word, then people will pick it up just as fast as they possibly can. You really see that in English.
Gucci.
But the words that are being required now are not good tools, and that's why people aren't using them. And so instead what we have is the use of force, despite the fact that that's being denied. Although we've already established that, at least in the opinion of one of the people on this panel, I'm already guilty of a hate crime, which is what I said I was guilty of when I made that video. Steve, the issue with the law is quite straightforward. The government is requiring us to use certain language. That's not the same as not using certain language. And it's a line, and this is the fundamental issue. This is maybe the fundamental issue. That's a line we should not cross. We should not allow the government to decide which words we're allowed to use. It's a mistake. And it's a mistake that strikes right at the heart of free speech. And the thing about free speech is that it's not the right to criticize your leaders, which is what people usually characterize it as. Is freedom of speech is freedom to engage in the processes that we use to formulate the problems in our society, to generate solutions to them and reach a consensus. It's actually a mechanism. It's not just another value. And you should put constraints on free speech with the most extreme caution because you interfere with people's ability to think and communicate.
I see free speech like this. It's like a wall and you bounce a ball and the ball has to bounce. And luckily, we're going to push it, and we're going to stop where we kind of make an agreement where we settle that, hey man, I can accept that from your part, you can accept that on my part. But that's not happening. It's one part that says, hey man, we have to stay here because we have to be very nice. And you keep on pushing, bump. And then you're going to push. I'm like, whoa, you're going that far. You got to chill. Okay. Push. Whoa. And we are at a place right now that I'm like, how did we even freaking get here?
The hate crimes, that seems to be like kind of an American import into our discussion. The only two changes that this Bill C-16 make are to make minor amendments to Section 318 and 718 of the Criminal Code.
Right. I think we've set the table now. You want to get in on this now, I can tell. You've heard what the professor has to say. What's your response?
Well, I don't understand what the claim that there's no such thing as biological sex means. And I certainly think it's, let's call it an error, to suggest that there's some sort of scientific consensus about that. I mean, there's biological differences between males and females in animals and human beings at every level of analysis.
Well,
From
Yeah.
Okay, I'm jumping in here
Yeah.
because what about the notion he put forward at the end there that if you do not refer to people with the pronoun that they prefer to be referred to, that is a form, according to the Human Rights Commission, of discrimination.
It's not just a form of discrimination, it's a form of hate speech. That's why I made the video. I said that we were in danger of placing the refusal to use certain kinds of language into the same category as Holocaust denial, and suggested that maybe that wasn't such a good idea.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. If I don't want to do something like that, as if I don't want to identify you, and you tell me, well, I guess you're just like Hitler. I'm like, whoa, what do you mean? I'm not going to gas you up. I mean, I'm being gaslit sometime, but I'm not gonna do that. I don't want to put you in the category that the girl, the one that was a man but tried to dress like a girl, that funky with the girl, and you're like the maps and I don't want to say the word, the piece, you know, the Pocoyos, right? I mean, I don't want to believe that every people that's from the LGBTQ is a Pocoyo.
Especially since there's plenty of debate to be had about gender issues in our society, which I also think are also in danger of becoming illegal and quite rapidly. So
I think
it
already
isn't clear
did.
to me how long we'll be able to have the talk that we're having right now.
Of advocating genocide. And we have a series of groups that are already identified in the code, and all this does is add gender identity and gender expression to the categories that are already identified. And so I think we really have to add some reasonableness to this discussion, actually clearly articulate what the provision does.
Well, let me be a little clear about what some of the problems, what you might be asking for if you want to do this. For example, and Sheldon, bottom of page 3 here, let's put this graphic up. Pronoun misuse may become actionable through the human rights tribunals and the courts, and the remedies, monetary damages, non-financial remedies, for example, ceasing the discriminatory practice or reinstatement to the job, and public interest remedies, for example, changing hiring practices or developing non-discriminatory policies and procedures. Jail time is not one of them.
I already said it in the story, that they can force you to say a specific word, and if you don't say it, like they go after your kid, force you to say something when they gaslight you, blindside you, and they teach it at the school. If I was a kid, I was a good candidate to be from the LGBTQ. They also have, they can actually look in your Google search history, see that you were searching something because maybe somebody was calling you the F word as a joke or something like that. You got confused. You thought you might have to be labeled in a certain way. You search for it and they're like, hey, you search for those words. Get him, get him. Like a predator. There was an article happening. Just look it up. There's, if you look for a school that is checking your Google and everything, that's against the school. You're not even allowed to do it.
Jordan, you're not going to go to jail if you keep this up. Do you find that reassuring?
What if I don't pay the fine?
Then what?
Then what? And let's talk about the legalities for a minute. As you know, the University of Toronto sent me 2 warning letters, right? And the second one basically asked me to stop talking about this.
Who sent the letters?
The first, it's the administration, fundamentally, the higher up people in the administration. The last one was the dean of the Faculty of Arts and Science. But, you know, it's coming from the top end of the university.
And the letters said essentially you must call people by the pronouns they want?
The letters basically said that, and this is paraphrasing obviously, that as I'm required to abide by the university policies and the Ontario Human Rights Code, and there's a strong implication in the letter by having this discussion that I wasn't doing so, and so they're asking me to stop. And I can tell you also why they're asking me to stop apart from that. The codes as written make the university just as liable for my speech as I am.
This kind of makes sense.
Not only is there a reasonable possibility that what I'm doing is uttering hate speech now under our law, but the university is legally responsible for that. And so I think they consulted with their lawyers and decided that maybe the claim that I was making in my video was correct. So I don't regard that as trivial, and I think that the lawyer who's discussing this is downplaying the significance of it tremendously.
Could I speak to the campus climate about this? Because I don't agree with why Dr. Peterson has been asked to stop abusing students on campus.
To stop doing what?
Abusing students.
I see.
Oh, okay. Now I get it. Jordan is saying that I'm not supposed to talk about this anymore because if I have to stop, the way certain university is built for whatever, is that people can start suing the school.
They're members of our learning community who do deserve respect and do deserve to be able to work and learn and contribute to society in a place where if they are physically assaulted, if they are...
The assault so far came from the social justice warriors who were at this free speech rally, and almost 2 million people.
This is not... What you want?
Yeah, they did grab me and pull me in and try to punch me. They're the person right over there with the black lipstick.
That's assault right there.
Officer, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything that happened.
There's no reason to be.
Wait, I think this is different. But look at that face. Look at that face.
Yeah, nothing happened. I didn't see anything. Nothing happened. I didn't see anything.
Imagine if, wait, look at that. Imagine if somebody does something like that, hit my son, and then go to the cops say, I didn't hit anything.
Almost 2 million people have
This
watched
is not
those
accurate.
so far.
This is not accurate.
Well, you can look at the videos yourself.
Because people have been making complaints about your behavior.
Yes, I understand that.
Yes.
That,
and so we're
Can I just
seeing
be
a
clear on
greater
something here,
opportunity
Nick?
for social justice happening
Nick, let
that
me
many
be-
people won't understand.
Nick, can I be clear on something? You've accused him of abusing students by not using the pronouns they want to be addressed by.
That's how I see it, absolutely.
That is tantamount to abuse in your view.
Absolutely. Many global documents, many
how about
organizations.
violence? Is it tantamount to violence?
Yes.
How about hate
absolutely.
speech? Is it tantamount to hate
Yes,
speech?
of course. It's hate speech
Fine,
to tell
that's-
someone that you won't refer to them as in a way that they that recognizes their humanity and dignity.
And are you prepared to suffer the consequences that society may deem you need to suffer because of your views?
Yes, I'm prepared to do that.
What does that entail?
Are you open to learning?
Well,
That's
hang on.
not the question.
Hang on.
Whoa! Are you open to learning? Hey, all the people. Hey, even atheists, we can always use that. Hey, atheist, the next time you meet a Christian or a Muslim and you tell them that God doesn't exist, remember, use the same code. Are you open to learning? Okay, man. I don't know, man. I mean, I'm open to be in the middle when we have different opinions.
Well, so what am I willing to do? Well, I think that the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal is probably obligated by their own tangled web to bring me in front of it. If they find me, I won't pay it. If they put me in jail, I'll go on a hunger strike. I'm not doing this.
Who?
That's that.
Sometimes I told you, you have to put your foot down. You cannot keep, they cannot keep sending weird logic that you have to put logic into it because you want to be empathetic. And then the more you give them, the more you try to dissect their opinion, they throw it back at you. Well, it's logic. You believe it. You're the bad person. I just stopped. I'm like, hey man, if you can, if you don't provide a convincing argument, I'll listen. I can be empathetic. But if it doesn't make any sense, I'm sorry, man. It doesn't make any sense.
I'm not using the words that other people require me to use, especially if they're made up by radical left-wing ideologues. Now, if our society comes to some sort of consensus over the next while about how we'll solve the pronoun problem, let's call it, and that becomes part of popular parlance, and it seems to solve the problem properly without sacrificing the distinction between singular and plural, and without requiring me to memorize an impossible list of an indefinite number of pronouns, then I would be willing to reconsider my position. But I'm also partly opposed to this because it's been made mandatory and has the whole weight of the law behind it. It's like, this is a very bad idea. I believe this is a very bad idea. And I believe that the reason this has caused so much noise, tremendous amount of noise, tremendous amount of attention on YouTube, is because there are things that are at stake in this discussion, despite its surface nature, that strike at the very heart of our civilization.
So we're reaching the end. This one was a little longer and I talk a little more than I'm supposed to talk. But I think it actually makes kind of sense for me. At least when I see Jordan Peterson. And this is like back in the day. This is like so long ago. That's why I said he looks so young. I think he was under a lot of stress and something happened to him, right? But I just feel really bad for the guy. But then again, he kind of recovered his way of life. He got used to the pushback, and once you get used to it, once you survive this, I think even transgender people that have a bad time, they can learn from that and keep going forward. Because the only way that I can keep going forward is I just kept telling me when I was a kid, when I have no mom, I lost my eye, couldn't get a girlfriend or whatever, had to finish my study, but that wasn't even going well. They said you have one eye, you're not good for an interview, so maybe the people don't like you. You have to dress like the Dutch people. Back then it was an issue also. And I just realized nobody cared. And what I did, you know what? I just left Holland, finished my study. I met a beautiful woman. Oh no, I met her in Holland, left. They said, you know what? Let's go to your country. Let's start anew. And when I started anew, I decided I'm not going to be the beta man or whatever. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do this, create a whole freaking new identity and make that me. And everybody was like, whoa, you changed a lot. And it was like, yes, because I stopped trying to please people. I stopped trying to victim blame people. And back then, victim blaming, it wasn't like now. Victim blaming was bad. Everybody hated somebody that was so negative. They didn't want to even be around you. Now, by being a victim, you're the cool one. I don't want a society like that. I don't want to be part of that. I treat my kids very hard. The world isn't fair. I told them, look, I have one eye. If you fall, get up. I will come to you, but stop falling. I can't be there always. And it was hard in the beginning, but slowly, I realized we become a team. And now when he experienced some hardship, he doesn't cry immediately. Because it's like, hey man, I've handled worse.
Don't get me wrong, makosa kita bong. Put the fire na mi blonde kush hash purple skunk criollo colombici jam jam. Durlo que ta verde ta welcome. Dem vida mi a tu initiativa.